This is Father Bonaventure Chapman.
And this is Father Gregory Pine.
And welcome to Godsplaining. Thanks to all those who support us. If you enjoy the show, please consider making a monthly donation, or more frequently, on Patreon. Please
Not
be
possible.
sure to like. Not possible?
No.
Okay, well, invent a system, a platform that can have you pay more than monthly, and do that. And be sure to like and subscribe us also more than monthly to Godsplaining wherever you listen to your podcast. All right, here we go.
Did you say subscribe us? Like what actually takes place when one subscribes another?
It's a sort of act of love, in a way.
We're taking affirmation as you
Yes.
as you see fit to dole it out.
There we are. In any case, as I was saying, this is a special episode of Godsplaining. This is a Guestsplaining episode, and we're here to welcome Professor Dr. Michael Gorman from CUA. Dr. Gorman, welcome.
I'm glad to be here.
Okay, and we won't tell the people this is the second run of this, but this...
Definitely don't tell them. They would not want to know.
Not told.
Our
Not
last
told.
30-minute episode got deleted by the internet.
Technology.
Then they would condole with us if they knew that.
They would
sympathize with
Merit
us.
would have been lost entirely. Okay.
And then they might invent a platform for more than monthly donations.
Yeah, or at least just fix how technology works. Okay, Dr. Michael Gorman is the ordinary professor at the Catholic University of America in the School of Philosophy. Ordinary professor, by the way, is the high professor. The extraordinary professor is the guy who you go to if the ordinary guy's not around. Like, the ordinary guy is the guy who solves metaphysical problems. So if you have problems with substance and accidents and causality, community, worlds, possibility, necessity, any of that stuff, you go to the ordinary guy, and you only do the extraordinary guy or gal if, like, the ordinary guy's not there. So Dr. Gorman is the ordinary man. So if you have problems, come to see him first. He teaches mostly metaphysics, or works on metaphysics, has a doctorate in philosophy from the University of Buffalo, go Bills, under a great professor, Jorge Gracia, and then also a doctorate in theology, because why stop at philosophy? Higher sciences, keep going, from Boston College. And he has just produced a new self-help book, which is called A Contemporary Introduction to Thomistic Metaphysics. Look at this beautiful book here. And we are here to have Dr. Gorman with us for the second time, though, that you're seeing, viewers, which is an honor because there's only one other case, which is Mr. Victor Sweeney, who is a mortician. So you are a metaphysician, he is a mortician. So if we have a moralist, I guess we have to have a couple times with them too. But welcome, Dr. Gorman.
Glad to be here.
Okay. So you've written this new book, Contemporary Introduction to Thomistic Metaphysics. And I want to get into Thomistic metaphysics in a way because our listeners are probably very excited about Thomas, but they may not be excited about metaphysics. So we'll get them there in a way. But first, like, why write this book? How did it come about, and what do you hope to achieve with it?
Yeah, so it came about, I had been teaching a course on metaphysics for a number of years, and I was using a certain book with it, and I realized at a certain point that I wasn't using the book as much because I had started coming up with my own way of thinking about these things. And so I said offhand to the students one day, maybe I should just write my own. And they're like, yeah, you should write your own. I thought, okay, I'll do it. So the next time I taught the course, I was teaching from the sort of draft that I was actually writing, sort of scrambling to finish it while the course was going on. That's a pretty good motivation, I must say. And then after that, I spent the summer fixing up and did another version of it the following year. They had a lot of iterations, I'd say. But the purpose of it is to introduce people. Introduction is a leading in. So I want to lead people into Thomistic metaphysics, and to do that in a way that is sort of in dialogue with certain other strands of contemporary philosophy, especially so-called analytic philosophy. I sort of hear behind your question, like a lot of people, they may be put off by metaphysics or something like that. And I do actually try to write this in a way that counteracts that. So there's no law that says that metaphysics has to be written in a really horrible, impossible to understand style. I mean, that's very commonly done, but there's no rule that says you have to do that. And it doesn't have to be boring. So I've tried to make it sort of open and accessible. I don't use a lot of technical terminology. I don't know. I feel like if I can't explain something in a very, very simple way without a lot of technical terminology, if I can't explain it like that, then I don't know what it means. So I've tried to explain it in that way, and it turns out that it helps other people too, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's battle tested.
Yeah.
I've heard you give a lecture previously on moral relativism as feelings management.
Yeah.
Like as not so much concerned with the substantive issues as to whether or not there is one worldview to rule them all, one religion to rule them all, but it's just like a way of managing conflict or a way of managing our own interior tension.
Yeah.
I think that when people pick books, oftentimes there's a kind of feelings management dimension to it, because if you pick a book that you can't understand, sometimes you feel dumb, and it can be unpleasant to feel dumb. So we often pick books that we can understand, but then there's a risk to that, because if we only ever choose the comprehensible, then we remain within the limits of our present understanding.
Right.
So like, what's the disposition with which one takes on a difficult topic? Like I suspect for many of our listeners, like Thomistic metaphysics, sweet Christmas, you mean to tell me? So yeah, what's the disposition with which one kind of challenges himself in the life of study?
Yeah. I mean, if you take something that's super too far ahead of you, then you probably just won't learn anything at all. So there is a time and a place for saying that book is it's just too much. I'm not going to read it, or perhaps better, I'm not going to read it right now. But that doesn't mean you should always just, read, I don't know, whatever, Hardy Boys or Harlequin Romance or something that's just like totally easy, right? So you want to stretch yourself up the sort of right amount. So yeah, look for something that's beyond you, but not so much beyond you that you just get nothing. And then, as the years go by, you find yourself reading tougher and tougher things. And it's like growing in any other way, right? Like you're a lot taller than you used to be, but you can't like look at people and see them growing, but you do. So if you do this consistently, then you will get better at reading and understanding things. You won't feel it happening exactly, but one day you'll look back 5 years later and say, whoa, I remember when this made no sense to me. Now I kind of know what's going on. Incredible.
Yes. Yeah, we have things in the house studies called Thomistic circles, and they happen, and you've been a speaker at these things. And it's nice to gauge how much theology you've learned here at the house studies as student brothers, because you show up to the first one, like your first year, and you have no idea what people are talking about. No idea. And then by like your fifth or sixth year, or fifth year, you're kind of like, hey, I mean, I'm tracking, and I've got questions and that sort of thing. So, they're nice checks, and it's good to have like maybe books serve this purpose as well. Okay, so this book is one of these, not a stretcher, I would say, in the sense that like you're laying out on it and taking to the hospital, nor in the sense that it's like too far. But it is something. It's not Hardy Boys, that's for sure. It is an introduction. It's not a metaphysics for dummies, because that's impossible to write. Metaphysics and philosophy is for smarties. But most of us have brains, and so we're smart enough. And you're a good teacher, as you say, you can explain it, ideally. And this book has plenty of beautiful explanations at simplifying, but not dumbing down this. But I suppose we should get some terms here. So it is a book on philosophy, and a specific kind of philosophy, a specific part of philosophy, metaphysics, and then a specific, or at least a certain flavor of metaphysics, Thomism. So do you have any statements or thoughts or appeals to the jury on philosophy, metaphysics, and Thomism in that order, or maybe if there's a better order that you could explain what's going on with this stuff?
I'll take it in that order. So philosophy, it seems to me, is the attempt to ask and answer fundamental questions, basic questions. So if I ask you, how to fix this toaster, that's a good question, but it's not a very fundamental question. If I ask you what is a toaster, that's a little bit more fundamental. But then I start to say, after a while, we're like, well, what is a machine anyway? What's the difference between a machine and an animal? Like if somebody heard us saying that, they'd go, whoa, it's getting kind of philosophical here. And they'd be right, because as we get deeper and deeper, we're asking more fundamental questions. And when you do that, you're getting philosophical. And when you're doing it in a kind of organized, habitual way, then you're just doing philosophy. And so it's something that everybody does. It's just a question of how often you do it and whether you want to try to go about it in a sort of organized way. Now, and it's just important to do, because if you do that, then in all the other parts of your life, you'll sort of have a better sense of the basic structures of what's going on. You'll be less easily fooled. You'll be less easily confused. You'll be better at explaining what's going on in everything, Now, so metaphysics is a part of philosophy, and this is a sort of technical expression that's hard to avoid at a certain point. Metaphysics is the study of being, but being insofar as it is being. We sometimes say, so what on earth is that? All right. So here's what I'm thinking. Let's say you have, you want to study squirrels. That's a totally legitimate science. I don't know what the name of it is, squirrelology, but you could get more general than that, right? You could study rodents, or you could study mammals. You could study animals. So by the time you're studying animals, you're a zoologist, right? And if you study all living things, you're a biologist. Okay, so it keeps getting broader. Well, when you get to where you're studying everything, that's metaphysics, because you're studying all the things that are, all the beings, and you're not studying them insofar as they are squirrels or insofar as they are mammals or whatever, but just insofar as they are beings. So you're trying to ask, what does everything have in common, and what are the most basic subdivisions of being, and what are the principles that govern everything that exists? Now, Thomistic. When you do something Thomistically, okay, there's like a good way and a bad way to do this, I have to say. The bad way is to say, look, I am on Team Aquinas. Everything he says, I agree with. And I'm not going to think hard about this because he's already done all the thinking for me. But this just doesn't work. He's wrong sometimes. And anyway, it's really rude to read somebody's works and not think hard about them, because he wants you to think hard about them. So being a Thomist is, well, I don't know. Why Aquinas? Why Thomas? He was like unbelievably smart. Like the more you read him, the scarier he sort of becomes. He was also incredibly energetic and hardworking. Like every day he did like what would take everyone else a month. I just don't really understand it. I mean, I guess he was human, but like I don't. It's a little
Sort of.
weird.
Yeah,
it's a little weird. But it's not only that. He came at a time when the philosophical and theological resources were very rich. So he had a lot to draw on. If he had worked even just 50 years earlier, he couldn't have gotten as much done. And if he had worked even just 30 years later, by that time in the universities, a lot of the discussions were getting a lot more technical. So instead of like writing a whole lot of stuff about Christ that were 200 pages, he would have, in the same 200 pages, he would have written on more in depth, and it would have been cool and really fun and technical, but it would have been a lot narrower too. That's just how the discussions evolved. So he came at a kind of magical time, and he was able to leave us with a number of works that cover a huge amount of ground in a really profound and powerful way. And even when you're disagreeing with him, you learn a lot from him. And you can also learn about you want to sort of imitate him. Like he stays calm. He tries to find good interpretations of things and to make distinctions. He tends to handle things in a really kind of judicious way. And you want to be a philosopher like that, I think.
So maybe a question about questions. I've heard it said that human life is about learning progressively to ask good questions and to listen for good answers. And, those answers are given in their time, especially as you pass through certain experiences, kind of formative experiences. but I think that maybe at the beginning of life, many of us experience a kind of impatience
Yes.
with reality, a kind of impatience with our experience. It's like we want to know everything. We'd even prefer that there be fewer things to know so that we can have more of them in our minds, so we can have more of a palpable experience of our kind of domination of reality. But, in due course, things are revealed and we come to appreciate what's actually at stake. So, yeah, it strikes me that metaphysics is a kind of concentrated practice or exercise of asking the right questions. And maybe it's, I don't know, maybe that's a mischaracterization and that's like a kind of overly existential description. But yeah, like what do you think it means to ask good questions? Or what do you think it means to ask good questions of reality or good questions of your experience?
Gosh, that's a good question. Um, I mean,
Example.
Meta-narratival sweetness.
I think in one way, a good question is a question that you want to know the answer to. And in a way, part of the secret maybe to asking good questions is to be willing to ask questions that other people might think are dumb. I find this happens often in class. Students will say, "Oh, okay, I have this question, but it's like really dumb." And by now I know it's probably not dumb. It's probably actually a really good question. And often it's a kind of basic question, but philosophy is about basic questions. So, and then of course it's a question that like a lot of other people had, but they were afraid to ask because they didn't want to look stupid. So, but of course I'm thinking, it's a really good question. Okay, so if you think about things carefully, you often realize, I thought I understood this, and now I'm not so sure I do. So now you have a question. One of the problems with, actually, this is related to something that's important to be aware of if you're doing philosophy in a kind of Thomistic key. One of the things that's good about Thomism is that it's created a tradition, which is part of a larger tradition stemming from Aristotle, but there's still a particularly Thomistic stream of the tradition. And it has a lot of set questions, a lot of sort of set answers, set distinctions, and a lot of terminology. And you can get to where you're good at repeating the terminology and you know which are the correct Thomistic sounding answers to give. And maybe you get an A on a test or something. But basically, you're just being a chatbot. And what you should do every once in a while is say, wait a minute, I know I just gave the right answer, but what did I just say? So again, this is one of the reasons why, I think why for myself in a book like this, I want to try to explain things without the terminology. It's just a test to see whether I even know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I don't know. What are good questions? Ask questions that you want to know the answer to, and don't be afraid to ask questions that you think maybe sound dumb, because they're probably good questions.
Mm-hmm. I like this kind of returning to the basic questions, because philosophy, especially metaphysics, is to deal with the basics, the most fundamental things. And I think there might be a story in the sense that, metaphysics is old-fashioned, especially Thomistic metaphysics or medieval metaphysics or this sort of thing. Like we've solved that. It's that's like astrology. Like we have a new science, astronomy. We used to do metaphysics because we used to believe in like weird things like substances and accidents and all this kind of old stuff. But now we have new things like atoms, and we've got super powerful microscopes and all of that. And we're making lots of progress there. But we're still, but metaphysicians are still reading the same guys, talking about the same issues,
Yes.
These sort of things. So what's the response to like why so little progress, if there is little progress?
Yeah.
And what's the difference between metaphysics and philosophy than say some of these other sciences which are glitzy and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Well, part of what goes on, I think, here is that in the things that nowadays we call the sciences, they tend to proceed in large part by making new empirical discoveries. But in philosophy, there's very little. I might not insist on absolutely nothing by way of empirical discovery, but kind of close to that. By the time you're 10, you know most of what you need to know to do philosophy. You just need to think about it a lot. Look, I think the fundamentality of philosophy is a lot of what explains why it's very hard to make progress in philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because let's say you're an engineer, right? So you're trying to solve some problem. So what you do is you go one level down to like chemistry if you're a chemical engineer. And that's going to give you a principle that will help you solve your problem. Now, if you're doing philosophy, then you're very near the bottom. You might be at the fundamental principles where there's nothing lower to go to. So it's a lot harder to make progress. But it's worth doing. And even if you think that somehow, in a sense, it's all been done before, you haven't done it before. And I haven't done it before. Maybe I've been doing it a little bit longer than you. But still, you can't just like get metaphysics delivered to you by a drone from Amazon or something like that. You have to read, even if you have the book, you have to read it and you have to understand it. And so you always have to start over again and rethink it. And in a sense, you have to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm interested in this, but I don't have a well-formulated question, so I'm just going to say words, and then I hope that you can make something intelligible out of it. So I'm worried that. How worried am I? Am I doing anything about it? Maybe. It's hard to say. I'm worried that a lot of our lives are lived extrinsically. There's a kind of, I don't know, tendency in the 21st century to over-manifest or even to over-communicate in ways that aren't humane and can tend to be dehumanizing.
Yes.
Without like going on like a weird tangent, which is, I think people know what that is. Whereas it strikes me that something that's beautiful about philosophy, theology, the humane sciences, is that there's a kind of interiority to them.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than just exteriorizing your findings, exteriorizing your publications, exteriorizing your life, and your putative progress, there's a sense in which like it cashes out in a kind of interior culture.
Yes.
So like I've heard you speak before about philosophy as a kind of cure is the wrong word, but a kind of response to boredom.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Can you like testify? Can you sing of your heart's love? Can you describe some of the interior riches which philosophy extends to those who are willing to like think and struggle?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's funny. At first, I was sort of. There's something. Philosophers are in certain ways known for being very chatty. They just stand around and talk philosophy to each other a lot. But I think what you're saying is right, because that is part of this process of trying to figure out what you think. But when you figure it out, that's something that happens on the inside, interiorly. Now, sometimes you have to like state it in order to figure out what it is. But the real heart of it is in your own mind. And if you do this enough and sort of get into a habit of trying to think about things a lot, then I think you will find that you're not bored and you don't need to go on Instagram or Twitter, or I guess we're not supposed to call it Twitter anymore, but all those things, you don't need to do that anymore because you've got something to think about. And everything that you see around you is thought-provoking. So like, I sometimes use this example. You're standing in line at the store, right? And there's like some hold up because something's going wrong at the cash register, right? Now, what a lot of people do is they whip out their phones and do this, right? But the fact is you don't have to. There's so much to think about. Maybe you studied a little political philosophy. So here you are in this large room, and there's all these goods sitting on the shelves. Now, how come people don't just take them? Sometimes they do, but mostly people don't. So this shows a kind of self-discipline. It shows a kind of order in society. How does that work? How did that happen? Or there's another mystery here to think about: money. You take out a little plastic card and you go like this, and then a light goes on and goes boop, and then you're allowed to take the stuff. Why? Like, what is this? So there's all this stuff. You're just standing here in line, but you've got plenty to think about. So I think that if you cultivate, we talk about cultivating an interior life, and that expression sounds very religious, and I think that's a good thing, but that's actually, all right, I'm not like knocking it, but I just want to point out that even more broadly, there's just being able to think about stuff rather than outsourcing your own intellectual activities to the little machine.
Yeah, let's go let's go transcendent for a moment here. Not like we're gonna do some sort of drugs or anything, but like the metaphysics of Barnes and Noble with the power crystals, but rather so you end the book. It's Thomistic metaphysics, and Thomas cared a lot about theology.
Yeah.
So and it's not for nothing that he was a great theologian and a good philosopher. So how does the philosophy in here aid in growing in actual like holiness or sanctity? How does scientia, this sort of this notion of philosophy and knowing things about the world, also lead to or help in you thinking better about God? Like, how does philosophy and metaphysics help you be a better Thomist spiritually, not just like intellectually?
Yeah, I mean, if you love someone, you want to know about them, and getting it right matters to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in love with somebody and then somebody goes, "Oh, that person's from Wisconsin," and they're actually from, Minnesota, you're going to go like, "Excuse me, I know this sounds pedantic, but like, not Wisconsin," right? Because like, it matters to you, you see? Okay. So if you love God, then like, what's true and false about God, it should matter to you. Not only because like, okay, so I won't say not only, I'll say not because then you can like go around owning the heretics and trashing people, but because you love God, so you want to know. All right. So being philosophical concepts, philosophical distinctions and ideas, those are incredibly useful tools for getting thoughts clearer. And St. Thomas does a really great job of drawing on philosophical principles and then using them in theological contexts. And sometimes he has to change them and stretch them and reshape them in order to make them work theologically. And he's very happy to do that.
Yeah, and that's one of the beautiful parts about it, is it's not to be afraid of theology conflicting with philosophy, or like reason conflicting
Right.
with faith. And he's excellent at that. But it does mean that you have to take seriously the reason part and the philosophy part,
Yes.
if you're going to get the bonus of actually knowing the faith part in the theological sense. And that's absolutely right. Another thing I love about this book, and I know we have to conclude in just a second, but it is written in a very plain way, so that you can get key concepts and difficult concepts easily. So, for instance, the difference between substance and accidents is a notion, and you say it's the difference between what something's like and what something is, and that's just fantastic. It also has some great lines in there that relate to like beyond philosophy. It has this ending line, which says, as far as creation goes, basic beings are where the buck stops, and the metaphysics is about the basic beings. But all of creation is received from a source infinitely beyond itself. It's as if everything we thought we owned turned out to be only borrowed. And it's almost like a Chestertonian kind of a quip there or something. But you only get to understand what that possibly means by having done a little bit of the metaphysics before that book. And the book really does help you and help anyone to get a sense of that. And the payoff is that you can know and love reality and God better. So, Dr. Gorman, thank you for joining us, for talking about this new book, Contemporary Introduction to Thomistic Metaphysics, and a little bit of the point of the philosophical life.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and
now having read your devotional and your self-help book, we'll look forward to your travel log.
Or the cookbook. I'm looking forward to the Thomistic recipe book, cooking with the common doctor. Anyway, so thanks to all of our supporters who are subscribing to us. If you'd like to, it says tithe. You don't have to give 10%, but you can give more to our work. Check us out at patreon.com at Godsplaining, only once a month though. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, like, subscribe, leave a 5-star review, all those sort of things. Visit godsplaining.org for merch and also for upcoming events and retreats and these sort of things. Check out what the Friars are up to and other recommendations. But know of our prayers for you. Please pray for us, and we'll catch you next time on Godsplaining.